we Jews, we run over the course of the year in two parallel circles, two parallel cycles. One circle, or one cycle, being the ongoing changing chodashim, moadim. The different moadim reflect the changing chodashim, months. That's one cycle. And then there's another cycle, which is the Parshiot, the Torah Shebichtav, which we read and unfold over the course of a year. And the Shabbatot of the year, the Kuli Alma. The Gemara says in Masechet Shabbat, there's a machloket, what date in Sivan Torah was given. The Kuli Alma, everybody agrees, whatever the date of Sivan may have been, it was Shabbat. The Kuli Alma, B'Shabbat Nitna Torah. And being B'Shabbat Nitna Torah, Kriyat Torah B'Shabbat, it's brought down as explicitly as such, is a re-accepting of Torah through the Shabbatot of the year. Over the course of a year, we re-accept Torah Misinai. Kemoshe Matan Torah Milkatchila Haya B'Shabbat, HaTorah Nitenet Kol Shana Mitoch Shabbatot HaShana. In a way that when we complete a cycle by Simchat Torah, we went through an annual receiving of the Torah again. Okay? And that day of Matan Torah was one day here, it's spread over the course of the year, a lot to think about. But so it is, Torah Shebichtav is dished out over the course of the year. Very thought-provoking for thinkers. What's the deep interrelationship between a reality of time of a year and Torah Shebichtav? A lot to think about. I'll just mention what's brought down in sources, and that is, remember, the face of Moshe Rabbeinu resembles the face of the sun, as opposed to Yeshua, the face of the moon. The sun is responsible for this entity in time called the year. So that already is a direction of thought. In any case, as I said, we run in two circles. One circle, one cycle is the changing Chodashim Moadim, and another cycle is that of Parshiot HaShavua. Now, there is two possibilities of approach. Either you take one approach, and that is, it's just, I can see many people in the academic world, even in the Talmud department and as such, coming with a more of a research skeptic, historical explanation mindset from a human perspective. They'll give you all of the historical trickling down to say, don't overread into it. Two cycles, two separate origins. There's no deep intrinsic or inherent interrelationship between both, and therefore don't expect any meeting points between the two. One approach, the more intrinsic, essential, inherent approach, you could assume which one I see myself belonging to, is the second approach, and that is everything in accepted customs or halachot of Klal Yisrael is a godly, supervised process, and as such, the two cycles are both godly, ordained, or given, and therefore it will be meaningless to talk about randomness and the meeting points between them. And the Lamayla Nafkamina, should I or shouldn't I expect constant meeting points between one cycle and the other? I mentioned in Rabbi Eisenstein's shir this morning a pasuk from Hanavi Amos. I'll apply it here again. It's a pasuk you can apply on so many different levels. Hayelchu shnayim yachdav bilti im noadu. Again, hayelchu shnayim yachdav bilti im noadu. Would two go together unless they've been designated to? The Farshim explains somewhat differently. The underlying theme is two that go together, like a husband and wife. They're not randomly together, deeply related to Masechet Kiddushin. Or Kiddushin after Matan Torah as opposed to before, keeping in mind the famous Rambam, and I'm sure in different shirim has been spoken about. Two people, two Jewish souls, if they're together, they're meant to be together, they're designated to be together. So here also in terms of these cycles, I will claim, Hayalchu shnayim yachdav bilti noadu, definitely noadu. So I will claim. Now, if anybody on an individual basis will ask me, so how do I determine here? I have the skeptic person here, coming from the academic world. He's saying, no, it's all, don't overread into it. And you're claiming some, so how do I decide? I say, I always said, you guys have to decide. I have to decide. Each individual has to decide. You hear one approach, and you hear another approach, and you have to choose between the two as to which one. Yoter nishma lecha. And you're the judge. Nobody else can be the judge for you. Deeply related to what we would like to actually speak about. Okay. Let's assume we take Amos Luban's approach and not, I don't know, George from the Jewish Department of Jewish Studies, I don't know, Columbia. Maybe there's a George there, maybe not. George, Charlie, whatever the name may be, he Jewish or not, okay? We're going to introduce the way I understand it, and then you can go to him, hear him, and then you'll decide. Okay. Taking Amos Luban's approach, I don't think it's mine, I don't take possession of it. Okay, I'm just trying to share my understanding of sources, and that is this approach, this school of thought. If it is true, so then I would stop and think, interestingly enough, every single year, Sefer Devarim, or as Chazal call it, Sefer Mishnah Torah, is the way with which we complete the year every year. If they're meant to go together, that means that the definitions of Sefer Devarim, whatever that may be, the concepts of Sefer Devarim, the themes of Sefer Mishnah Torah need to be seen in complete conjunction with these weeks. But by the way, it takes us all the way from Tisha B'Av, it's on our topic now, through all the weeks that follow. They actually have a title. What is that? The weeks of, the 7 weeks of? Shiva Nechemta. But we forgot about Shabbos Nachamu when we were in camp. That was celebrated the week after. Who remembers Nachamu though? Concept of Nechama. We forgot it. Ben Azmanim, August, whatever you want to call it, wherever you may be holding. Some people hold it Ben Azmanim, some people hold it in August, or August. But in any case, by the time Ben Azmanim or August is over, you start Elul, and whoever remembers Nachamu, Shiva de Nechemta, the Kadosh Baruch Hu does, he gave us, so I believe, the Minhag, which is already driven into Halacha, which continues with us till this coming Shabbat, the Shabbat that takes us straight into Rosh Hashana. Anyways, the point is that Sefer Mishnah Torah escorts us all the way and completes the year with us every single year. Let's try to give a few moments of attention to what, by the way, is, one could say, my baby Chumash, or as it said, different Gedolei Yisrael had different Masechtas. That was their Masechet. So I think before I answer as to if there's such a Masechet by me, Chumashim, Sefer Devarim, I feel that's every Chumash I find fascinating at its time in the year. Devarim I have an extra special relationship with. We don't often get to talk about it here because Chumash year is not on during those times. Let's take this opportunity, a few minutes about some definitions for Sefer Mishnah Torah. So first of all, before anything else, Sefer Mishnah Torah, Sefer Devarim, by definition, is categorically different than the rest of the Chumashim. You'll say every Chumash is different. Every Chumash is unique. It's true. But categorically, Sefer Devarim is a different category than the rest. On the basis of what do I say this? There are multiple different levels one can say. What? Well, number one, in terms of its origin, anybody here learned last year, most of the guys here learned Masechet Megillah. So the Gemara towards the end of the Masechet says, about Parshat Kitavo that we read last Shabbat, that the Klalot Shebe Mishneh Torah, which is Parshat Kitavo, Moshe Mepi Atzmo Amaran, which is, as opposed to Bechukotai, which is the Klalot Shebe Torat Kohanim, Moshe Mepi Advura Amaran. It's a different category. Is it not Ruach HaKodesh? Of course it's Ruach HaKodesh. It's not part of Kitvei HaKodesh? Of course it's part of Kitvei HaKodesh. It's part of Chamisha Chumshei Torah completely. Part of Torah's Moshe? Yes. And yet, there's something about Sefer Devarim, and we cannot elaborate on it because that's not our topic. Eile HaDvarim. So is the opening, the launching off, shooting of the book. Yiriyat HaPticha, the opening shooting. And that is, Eile HaDvarim Asher Diber Moshe El Bnei Yisrael. By definition, what Yehuda said, the Gemara gives it the title Moshe Mepi Atzmo Amaran. It's not that it's human inventions which are not godly supervised. They are, but it's a different league. Kabbalistically, I'm not holding there, but I'm assuming that Mukubalim, I'm convinced, not I'm assuming, will define what's the Ruach HaKodesh level in Sefer Devarim as opposed to the levels in the previous Chumashim. One is defined as Mipi Advura, one is Moshe Mepi Atzmo. Another level, I'll say again, by definition, categorically it's different. The very title of Chazal, Mishnah Torah, which means Yesh Torah, Yesh Mishnah Torah. Whatever the definition of Mishnah Torah will be. The Rambam appealed very much to, and he borrowed that as a name for his own book. But whatever the definition of Mishnah Torah, we don't have the time to go into that. It's a thought-provoking. Mazeh Mishneh Torah, Mazeh Mishneh. If Yesh Mishneh b'kol Tanakh, a lot to think about. A lot one can elaborate on. But the very category, definition of the book as Mishneh Torah puts it on its own category. Now, this is going to have multiple manifestations. The style of Sefer Devarim is different. The concepts are unique. So many of what I call the bottom line shel kol haTorah kula wait and appear only in Sefer Devarim. Ahavat Hashem, you all heard that mitzvah? Yeah. How primary it actually is in the list of the mitzvot, of the conceptual organization of the mitzvot by the Rambam and Sefer HaMitzvot. One of the very, very first few. Is it mentioned in Bereshit? No. Is it mentioned in Shemot? No. Vayikra, Bamidbar? No. Only Ve'avlet Hashem Elokecha b'chol levavcha, it appears again and again in Sefer Devarim. The mitzvah Yirat Shamayim, Sefer Devarim. Dvekut b'Hashem, v'atem dvekim b'Hashem Elokechem chayim kulchem hayom. In the world of Chassidut, definitely defined as the ultimate destination of Avodat Hashem, to reach Dvekut b'Hashem. Did we ever hear such a concept before? Never. Sefer Devarim. V'alachta b'drachav, to emulate God's ways. Anywhere? No. You'll tell me, but man was made in His image. That's true, but there's no tzivui. When does it actually express itself as a command? I've seen striking things about it. I think it was the Orach Chaim HaKadosh. Rina soon is going to talk about Orach Chaim. I think it was there in Kliyat, I'm not sure. I think Orach Chaim. He says that V'alachta, I'm saying this in brackets, V'alachta b'drachav, Hashem never commanded. Moshe is telling us to do that. Like Rav Nemitz will never tell us, emulate my ways. It's because he doesn't say that we want to emulate him. Look at Suyala, he would tell us, we would stop emulating him. Emulating, by definition, is the most profound, Rav Kook says this, form of class where I'm not actively teaching, I'm just being myself. And what radiates off is the most profound, and most penetrating shir than any speech such as given right now. Just by the way he is, by the way any tzaddik is, and by the way the tzaddik, or the capital tzaddik, that is the Kadosh Baruch Hu. Tzaddik Hashem b'chol b'rachav. What's the meaning of it? My understanding it as such. Why all these bottom lines in Sefer Devarim? I call Sefer Devarim after all that's been said and done. That's what Sefer Devarim in my mind is. After all the dinim, and the halachot, and the chukim, and the mishpatim, and the historical events. As we say in Hebrew or Yiddish, tachlis. At the end of the day, what is it all about? Where is it supposed to all get to? One can get so lost amongst the trees and not see the forest of Torah. Sefer Dvarim comes to mend that and to make sure not to get lost. Where is it all meant to get to? What are mitzvot supposed to produce? What's limud Torah supposed to affect you? What's the purpose of life in Olam Hazeh? You don't have statements like that in the other Chumashim. They don't appear there at all. Doesn't even begin. And Sefer Devarim, it's all over the place. Especially in Parshat Vayitchanan, Ekev, our Parshat, Ki Tavo, Nitzavim, constantly. What is it all for? V'atah Yisrael. You hear it in that pasuk in Parshat Ekev. And now Israel, after all been said and done, Ma Hashem Elokecha she'el meimach. What am I really asking from you? Then you have a whole long, beautiful list. La'avayt Hashem Elokecha, u'lo'ovdo b'chol levavcha b'chol nafshecha. Hear that term alone, b'chol levavcha b'chol nafshecha. What's more Jewish than b'chol levavcha b'chol nafshecha? It defines our mode in our Avodat Hashem. It doesn't appear in any other chumash. Over and over and over again in Sefer Devarim. As such, I often, every year I think of the Torah Moshe, Torah Shebechtav. I give it the following metaphor in my mind as an electric kettle. Yeah? It starts cooking, and then it boils and makes more noise. And it's about to reach its peak. It reaches its peak, and that's it. And that's the way Torah Shebechtav works. It builds up, reaches Sefer Devarim, it's boiling. The intensity grabs you. It's not stam. Many tzaddikim and Gdolei Ador says you're the best Musar book in the world. Remember the specific sources in Chassidut and outside of Chassidut. Sefer Devarim, number one best Musar book. Quoted whole different sources. The intensity reaches a peak in Sefer Devarim. And I believe it's the peak of Sefer Devarim, these parshiot now. Zokta Bracha, I understand it as a postscript. The bracha that Moshe gives Klal Yisrael, it's not already teachings. It's not Torah milashon limud ha'ora'ah. Interestingly enough, we said before, Torah is given on Shabbatot. The one parsha in the Torah that's not given on Shabbat is Zot HaBracha. That itself categorizes it as different. It's not because technically, let's have it, there's obviously an intrinsic meaning there. It's a different level. You can see Rav Hirsch in Parshat Zot HaBracha at the opening, you'll see. He says something along these lines. It's a different category. Dvarim was a different category, Zot HaBracha is already further a different category. So, our Parshiot, Nitzavim, Vayelech, Ha'azinu, Vayelech is very much in that second part, the introduction to Ha'azinu. It's hard to separate between the two. This is where the kettle is shooting, screaming if it has that noise that it does, and that's it. And that's the way things ultimately end. Moshe dies, and Torah Moshe comes to an end. That's it. We don't hear from Moshe anymore. It's not directly. I think that's the context in which one should learn and understand the Parshiot of Nitzavim and Vayelech. Torah, the kettle is reaching its peak. The boiling is at its height. Okay? That's the intensity. And if you listen carefully to these short yet super intense Parshiot of Nitzavim Vayelech, Vayelech Ha'azinu, you hear in every pasuk. And that's the way in which Torah brings us into Rosh Hashanah. It's brought down, and it's talked about Atem Nitzavim Hayom. In many sources, Hayom is referring to Rosh Hashanah. Hayom. Vayi Hayom is the beginning of Sefer Iyov. Hayom Chazal Darshan always Rosh Hashanah. Different places in Tanakh. Atem Nitzavim Hayom Rosh Hashanah. Every single year. Nitzavim brings us into Rosh Hashanah. Okay. So let's open up the Chumash, please. Let's try in the next 20 minutes to learn these Parshiot inside. And with that, try to go into Rosh Hashanah. Okay, Nitzavim v'Vayelech is coming Shabbat. Let's go. Let's start off with the second Parsha, Vayelech. Very short Parshiot. Let's start with Vayelech, and then we'll go back to Nitzavim. Okay, follow together with me inside. Parashat Vayelech, Perek Lamed Aleph, Pasuk Aleph. Okay? Perek Lamed Aleph, Pasuk Aleph. In the army, they always used to say, I always quote this, that everything splits into three. Why would the army produce such a philosophical sounding sentence? We know that. But it's registered in my mind. I use it a lot in Torah. Parashat Vayelech, not sure. Let's simplify things. I split it into two. Okay? Here the army is wrong. Parshat Vayelech. It's two sections to Parshat Vayelech. To look inside together the Parshat Vayelech. The first half starts with Perek Lamed Aleph Pasuk Aleph and continues till Perek Lamed Aleph Pasuk Yud Gimel. 13 Pasukim. What are the 13 Pasukim? Hopefully some people already did a little Shnai Mikra. If not, try to scan as we're talking. But Parshat Vayelech, first half, Perek Lamed Aleph Pasuk Aleph, Aleph Pasuk Yud Gimel, Vayelech Moshe. You hear it in the words, many Sfarim talk about it. This is the day that Moshe goes. Vayelech. Okay? Moshe goes. This is the day of his departure. We're already holding at the last day. It's the last day of Moshe Rabbeinu, and as such, this is the day in which he is ending his leadership. This is the day that he's handing over the leadership of Chayza to Yeshua. Okay? But, being that you cannot separate between the person and the book, that's almost true. Tanakh, fascinating to see often. Except for Yeshua. Ends off, Yeshua died. The book and the person is one. For sure Moshe. Zichru Torat Moshe Avdi closes the Nevuah. Before the veil comes down and prophecy ends till the end of days. Nizkele Nevuah b'mera b'yameinu. Amen. Zichru Torat Moshe Avdi. Moshe emet v'torato emet. You cannot separate between Torat Moshe and Moshe. And that is why the last day of Moshe is the last day of Torah Moshe. And that is exactly why immediately we go in Pasuk Zayin, look inside, the second half of what I just said is, now that I'm leaving today, I'm giving over the leadership to Yehoshua, and as such, I'm ending and being handed over. Me as a book is ending, completing, and being handed over, and he hands over the Torah, he completes writing it, and he gives it over to Bnei Israel, to Shevet Levi. Beautiful, beautiful, gorgeous. Prettiest name, my favorite Rashi. B'kol HaTorah Kula, that somebody, if anybody went through the Rashi, at the end of Kitavo, on this day Moshe says to Bnei Israel, you know, Bnei Israel have been complaining for 40 years. Experts in complaining. On the land, Moshe Rabbeinu, you're shocked. How many complaints can they hear? On his last day, they complain again. But this is the most sweetest complaint he ever heard. He gives it over to Bnei Levi. Bnei Israel come to him, what is this? You're giving the Torah only to your tribe? What about us? Also, we were at Har Sinai. Wasn't given to Bnei Levi. She says, thank you, I've been waiting for this complaint for 40 years. Now I know how connected you are to Torah. My conclusion from that is complaining is not bad. The question is, what are we complaining about? Complaining about the fact that you want Torah to the Shevet, like, wonderful, here, be my guest. Take it. So Moshe ends and the Torah ends. He gives the leadership over, he gives Torah over. That's the opening of Parshat Vayelech. So, that's the first half. What happens in the second half of Parshat Vayelech? Look inside together with me. Perek Lamed Aleph Pasuk Yud Daled. Quickly, we don't have much time. Perek Lamed Aleph Pasuk Yud Daled to the end of the Parsha. This second half of Parshat Vayelech is the introducing of the next Parsha, Parshat Azinu. And that's what I meant before, that they're on separate. Parshat Vayelech, second part, introduces Parshat Azinu. Here in the second half of Parshat Vayelech, Hashem says to Moshe, come, by the way, this is the first time in Sefer Devarim that Hashem speaks. It's somehow a reappearing of the quote-unquote old Torah, where Hashem talks. What's the most common pasuk B'kol HaTorah Kula? Is there such a pasuk in Devarim? No. Because, as Yehuda said, Moshe is speaking. Moshe Pi Atzma. True. Here, yes. Interesting. Vayelech Azinu seems to be a comeback of Torah Hashem. Pi Gvura. Hashem is speaking. He never spoke. Not all Sefer Devarim. Moshe is speaking. It's his speeches. Vayomer Hashem el Moshe, you're about to die. This is your last day. Come with Yeshua to the Oel Moed. And basically, to say it in short in English, come to the tent of meeting. Moshe, you're dying today, and you should know, not maybe, not perhaps, as always you've been told till this point. Here it's different. Bnei Yisrael will go off the derech of Hashem, and as a result, they will be exiled, and they will be suffering hester panim. And therefore, you need to teach them the song of Azinu, which is the song of their history, the master plan of God from beginning to the end of days. It takes us back to creation and all the way to Yemot HaMashiach, and all that's contained within that fascinating Shira that the Ramban says about Shira Azinu. You'd like to see the Ramban inside. Says the Ramban, so I'll quote it in a few different places, that even if an astrologist, a goy, Chozeh B'Kochavim, would give me the document of Azinu, I would believe every piece in it, in terms of its predictions, to the end. Why? Because everything in the song of Azinu, says the Ramban, up to my days in the medieval period, happened exactly according to the plan, and therefore I have no doubt that the plan will continue unfolding according to the text, and that's a guarantee for the future Geula, which is predicted at the end of Parshat Azinu. So intense are the words of the Ramban. The godly plan, that's the way Torah ends off. If Sefer Bereshit, we think of it in terms of the blueprint of creation, Parshat Azinu, Torah becomes something new. The blueprint of history. It's a different level. Maybe it's referring to this. The way with which God rules over the world all the way to the end of days. Torah becomes a Parshat Azinu, and the Vayelech is the introduction to it. That is, Torah defines the master plan of history, of what not may happen if, that we had till now. Vayayim Shamoah, Yibechukotai, Kitavo. Here now, here's not what may happen. What will happen, which the Rambam brings as a supposable contradiction to the principle of Bechira Chavshit, free will, and Hilchos Tshuva. And he deals with it, and he addresses it. Fascinating Rambam way. So, this is Parshat Vayelech. Let's go back now to Parshat Nitzavim. Parshat Nitzavim starts off, Atem Nitzavim Hayom Kulchem, Perek Kaftet Pasuk Tet, Perek Kaftet Pasuk Tet. Atem nitzavim hayom kulchem lifnei Hashem Elokechem. Going through all the individuals that make up Klal Yisrael, from top to bottom, and all this is for Pasuk Yud Aleph, third Pasuk in the Parsha. Look inside. Le'ovrecha b'vrit Hashem Elokecha u'eladot, to bring you through a brit. Brit? What brit? So if we go a few psukim earlier to the end of Parsha Kitavo, Perek Kafchet Pasuk Samech quickly, 28:69, the closing pasuk of the Tochacha, or the Brachot and Klalot of Parsha Kitavo, it sums it up. Parsha Kitavo sums itself up as I am a brit. אלה דברי הברית אשר ציווה השם את משה לכרות את בני ישראל בארץ מואב מלבד הברית אשר קראתי איתם בחורב, which are very many sources. That's Parsha Bechukotay, given at the end of our stay at Har Sinai, the Brachot and Klalot of Torat Kohanim. But the Brachot and Klalot of Mishneh Torah is another brit. Says the Rambam in Hilchot Milah that there are 3 britot that Hashem made. It's based on Chazal. 3 britot Hashem gave to us on Torah. 1 in Har Chorev, 2 in Arvot Moab. 1 in Har Chorev, according to most, is Parsha Bechukotay. It's a brit. 2 in Arvot Moab, 1 is Kitavo, and what's the other one? That's Nitzavim. La'avrecha b'vrit. Why 2 britot? Maybe I understand there was a need for the end of our Sinai. It's a different generation. Now it's a new generation on the border of Eretz Yisrael. So 1 brit. What do you mean 2 britot? But when you go through the brit of Nitzavim, as scary as Kitavo was, Nitzavim was a bit more. Why? How do we define Parsha Kitavo as the Parsha of Bracha and Klala? Are they harsh? The Klala? A Parsha Nitzavim, we're told like this. If there, we read it this morning here in Shiva. If there's an individual member, or individual family or group or tribe that says all this which was said, which according to most sources that's Parshat Kitavo, all those warnings, they're not relevant to me. I'm just going to go and do my own thing, and that's not relevant to me at all. Hashem will not forgive him, and he'll erase his name from under the heavens. What does it sound like? Haret? Cut off, chopped off, completely. Parshat Kitavo never said anything like that. Parshat Kitavo is Brachot and Klalot, a life of blessing, or a life of the opposite. Without the time to define too much. Parshat Nitzavim is to be or not to be, is to exist or not, life or death. Why is that? Because Parshat Kitavo is addressing Klal Yisrael, and Klal Yisrael can either have bracha or the opposite, Chalila. Klal Yisrael is eternal. The individuals that make up Klal Yisrael, Parshat Nitzavim, that we go through the list, each and every one of you are present here today. And if each, chas v'shalom, one of you, or a group, will cut themselves off, they will cut themselves off. There is a guarantee for Klal Yisrael for eternity. There is no, it's scary to say, there's no guarantee for the individual. A person can make his life or destroy his life. A person, with his actions and choices, can cut himself off from existence. Scary? It's scary. Klal Yisrael, Am Yisrael Chai, L'netzach Netzachim. The individual, we're already dealing here with not Bracha and Kala. This is already Chaim and Mavet, life and death. Speaking of the kettle reaching its peak, the peak of it all, I think, is the ending of Parshat Nitzavim. Look inside, please. Starting to wrap up. Perek Lamed, Pasuk Tetvav. Perek Lamed, Pasuk Tetvav. And many sources refer to as Parashat HaBechira. See how it's related and a product of what we were just saying. Re'eh natati lefanecha hayom. Famous psukim. Et hachayim v'et hatov. See, I'm putting forth in front of you today, on my closing day apparently, life and good, v'et hamavet v'et hara. Versus death. And Moshe elaborates what is one versus the other. Finally, we're told, and this is what I think is the peak of the kettle. Pasuk Yutet. Ha'idoti b'chaim hayom et hashamayim et haaretz. Ha'chaim v'hamavet natati lefanecha. Put it in front of you, life and death. Incorporating, interestingly. I beg you, u'bachalta b'chaim. Choose life. Leman tichiyata v'zarecha. Choose life for the sake of your life, your children's life. I can only beg, Hashem said. You have to make the choice. Could Torah be more intense? Is it possible to be more intense than this? Is it shaykh? I don't think so. This is bringing down the choices of Torah, yes or not, to its bottom line as could be. It's finally, ultimately, see, realize, reflect. The two paths are ultimately not of a successful or non-successful life for individuals or for Klal Yisrael. It's at the end of the day, it's on the level of to be or not. That really is the question. To exist or not. Life or death. In your hands. Your choice. Now let's think together. Parshat Vayelech introduces the godly master plan. Says the Ramban, I accepted that anything about the master plan. It predicts in advance the entire historical process. Parshat Nitzavim is the place that the Torah talks about freedom of choice. The Rambam puts forth Bechira Chavshit as the principle that the whole Torah stands on. You say, what's his source? Parshat Bechira, the end of Nitzavim. Interesting. Two edges of the spectrum. Parshat Vayelech is introducing the godly master plan that's engraved into history. History is the godly, determined master plan. Parshat Nitzavim, that meets it back to back, is the place finally that the Torah brings everything down. The bottom line, I was invented in the first place to produce you into a person who makes his choice. If that's there, everything else could be there. If that will not be there, nothing will be there. You hear it even in that phrase, famous line, Uvacharta b'chayim. What do you hear from it? That if it's a life that you yourself individually choose, you could refer to it as life. It's Chaim. And if it's a life that I've lived, that I did not make the choices in it, I'm not alive. If my father chose it for me, and I'm not alive. I keep Torah and mitzvot because my father told me to, and I never resolve whether it's the truth or whether it resonates with me. I'm not alive. That's not kihem chayenu. And if you need a makor, some people always need a source. The Baal Shem Tov says so explicitly. Elokeinu ve'elokei avoteinu. First of all, says the Baal Shem Tov Elokeinu. Afterwards, connected to its origin, because if it's not connected to its origin, it's nothing. Then Elokei avoteinu. It needs to be my own kinyan, related to kiddushin, related to what we spoke about in Rabbi this year. It needs to be my choice and my kinyan and my acquisition. For me to be alive, I need to make the choices of life. Uvacharta b'chayim. It's embedded in the psukim. It's not saying any major chiddush. You just reflect the psukim. You see it inside. Uvacharta b'chayim. If it's not one's choice, it's not alive. It's not life. For those of you who were in Rabbi Assistant Shir this morning, connected to the Maharal that I quoted, in terms of an ani chashuv kemet. Poor person is considered dead because he doesn't contain the source of life within him. He's dependent upon others. When you put together the godly, determined master plan and the world of free choice, is there a source in our sources that joins the two together into one sentence? No. Pirkei Avot. Akol tzafui. V'harashut netuna. I'll invent a medrash. Hakol tzafui. Parshat Vayelech Hazinu. Harashut netuna. Parshat Nitzavim. And the two meet here in these parshiyot. That's the way Torah ends off. I think, I've often shared this, that the most fascinating meeting point between these two realms in the world, anybody learned from Chal's Dat Vuno? It's the theme of the whole book, understanding the two layers. The world on the one hand is an arena in which you make choices. The world on the other hand is a world of a master plan. Everything is determined in advance, and a person has freedom of choice. Rivers of ink have been poured over these questions. The Rambam himself addressed it. Yadua. I think that the most poignant moment in history in which these two levels meet is when Mordechai tells Esther, Klal Yisrael will be saved for eternity. It can happen through you, it can happen through somebody else. That's the master plan. That's Parshat Ha'azinu. Am Yisrael Chai. It's your choice whether to interpret properly that it was brought your way to jump into the opportunity and be an active participant in it or not. That's your choice. That's Parshat Nitzavim. Choose. You can become history. You become a dust of history. You choose. She chose. She becomes Esther Amalka for eternity. Kitvuni Ladarot, write me for generations. She screams to Chazal. They accept it. She's engraved in the 24 books of Kitvei HaKodesh. Hakod Tzafui, V'Hareshut Netuna. God's world, that's the way Torah ends off. If you wish, it's a group. A WhatsApp group. And you're welcome to join it and become an active participant in it. Or you can choose not to choose to join it. The master plan will unfold. We're invited to join in. This is the way, this duality and paradox of the freedom of choice of individuals and the godly master plan which is determined is the way with which Torah wraps itself up. And that's the way in which, I have to wrap up. Speaking of wrapping up, that's the way Torah finishes off. That's the way in which we go into Rosh Hashanah. Hashem put together, shared, planned, wrote the entire Torah for one thing: to produce me into a man of choice. That's what it's all aimed at. And why? Hashem says, because I choose, I expect you to choose as well. Sefer Dvarim talks about Halachta b'drachav. I choose, I expect you to be a man of choice. Where do we find that God chooses? I think maybe 1 or 2 times in the entire Torah. Maybe once in Devarim. No, it doesn't even appear there. In Bamidbar? No. In Sefer Devarim, Hashem appears over and over as a God who makes choices. Beit HaMikdash is defined not as Beit HaMikdash in Sefer Devarim, but as HaMakom Asher Yivchar Hashem, the place of Hashem's choice. The Rambam uses that. Hilchot Bet HaBechira. Bet HaBechira is Beit HaMikdash. Chazal also uses that. A house of God's choice. And it goes over and over. Hashem chose you from the rest of the nations. No other Chumash. Sefer Devarim, Hashem reveals Himself as the God who cares, who wills, who has a freedom of choice, and He chooses and He wills us. And He expects us to become a man of choice. Why? Because that which I will and that which I choose is most me. Okay? Anybody here learned possibly Sefer Tanya, Chabad, they talk about this with no end, and we'll wrap up with that. That a human being, we often talk about it, it's comprised of 4 stages, or levels. The most exterior one is that of actions. 1 level deeper is that of speech. 1 level deeper is that of thought. And the most profound chamber within me is that of Ratzon. Maaseh, Dibur, Machshava, Ratzon. That's most me than anything else. Everything else is manifestations of me, even my thoughts. What do I will is who I am. As the Gemara says in Masechet Brachot, we say to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so said one of the Tanaim HaMoraim, Avinu Shebashamayim, Retzoneinu la'asot retzoncha, our will is to do your will. But there's the Yetzer Hara and Shi'abud Malchuyot and the difficulties of history that are barriers. Our job is to remove their barriers. Rosh Hashanah is the day of God's original will to create this world. If we had more time, we would show how it expresses itself on multiple different levels. Let's go back once a year to the moment of creation. To the moment that Hashem had the original will to make this world. By the way, I believe deep down, truth is brought down in sources. That's the depth of the meaning of Yom Tru'ah. Tru'ah, like Ra'avah, the will of God. The day of God's will. What? Not just a thought of God behind the creation. What's the will of God behind the creation of the world? What did God want from His world? Why did He will this world? The world is a product of God's will. On that day, we come back and examine together with the Kadosh Baruch Hu, Bnei Israel at least, what was God's will when He made this world? And that's the whole content of the davening. That which Hashem will is Shachris Musaf in every single tefillah. That at last the world should get to know God and behave like God, what God envisioned and wanted from His world. The desire that He had at the moment of creation We go back there once a year on the day of Rosh Hashanah to share and to check where is God's will and where is my will. The product of that is din. The gap will determine what I'll go through in the coming year. B'ezrat Hashem, l'chaim, l'bracha, v'le'atzlacha, lanu v'lechol am Yisrael.
Amen.
But the avodah of the day is to reposition and to check and examine where is my will, where is God's will. Are we living in the same world? Do we share in the same will? Or there is a gap? That's the avodat hayom of Rosh Hashanah. And Sefer Devarim brings it straight in. One's will is where one's bechira takes place. And the bechira, which is introduced every year, Shabbat before Rosh Hashanah, allows us to get into Rosh Hashanah and to become people of choice, of will, of freedom of will, just like God freely chooses and wills the world that He created. Toda rabah, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat tova.